I feel like the Gravitron, if that's what it's called, that particle they're trying to find that like has gravity in it or whatever. I think that thing could be real, but it's like infinitesimally, how do you say that?
Infinitesimally?
Infinitesimally small. Like the particle, the gravitron particle is so small that we can't detect like gravity and quantum on it. So we kind of know that's true because when like a mass gets huge, like a black hole, gravity becomes enormous. So it becomes infinite. Mm-hmm. So the inverse is probably true, that as the particle becomes infinitely small, and we probably have infinitely small particles because everything is made of something and it just goes on forever. Mm-hmm. So we probably have infinitely small particles, and that means we simply can't detect the gravitron. We can't detect gravity and quantum uniting at that small a scale because it's basically infinitesimally small, and that means gravity almost doesn't exist. It's asymptotic. Mm-hmm. It almost doesn't exist, but it exists just enough.
Right. And then
it's getting smaller and smaller with each particle, the gravitational pull.
The smaller the particle is, the less gravity applies to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it becomes like asymptotic, where it bends to hit the point but never hits it because it's an infinity.
And there's two ends of the asymptote, right? Because there's the infinitely where.
But we know what happens there. Black holes.
Yeah, that would be the supermassive.
Light can't escape. Gravity becomes so strong it even absorbs light.
I could see the reverse being true in the exact opposite direction.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's a hypothesis because we're not as good at observing that scale, but it seems to flow and make logical sense. It also seems to make sense why we can't unite the two, and it also makes sense when you think of like extra dimensions. And wait, is that what it's talking about? Extra dimensions? I don't know. It just makes sense. It just makes sense, like, on pretty much any scale you could think about it on. Oh, and it makes sense about God, too. Because I have the theory that God could be gravity. And if God is gravity, and the creator of the thing that we're in is everywhere all at once and always has been, well then wouldn't that entity have extreme gravity at the large scale and then infinite gravity? Isn't it like bookending God's abilities in a way? If God is a force like gravity, he can be infinitely weak and infinitely strong. He could be a black hole, or he could be an infinitely small particle. I say he, whatever, the force. So if God is gravity, well, gravity could be infinitely strong in a black hole, and then it could be infinitely weak as it becomes a smaller and smaller and smaller particle asymptotically.
Is there ever a point where gravity does not exist?
No, I think it's an asymptote. So by nature, that's a curve that approaches but never touches the line. And it always will do that because, like, it's slope or whatever. It's rise over run. Remember slope? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's slope, but there's something in the math, doubling it, something about it where...
it never approaches.
Yeah, like, it's almost like one step forward, two steps back type situation where it, like, gets closer but bends more. That's what's happening. Mm-hmm. So it's getting closer to that line, but, like, bending more. And that's, like, I think, I don't know. I'm not a math guy. But it's like infinitely approaching that point, but never touching it. Well, that sounds like a lot like the powers of someone who would create this space we're in. They're infinitely small and infinitely large at the same time. So I think the Gravitron could be God.